It's week 45 of 2021. I'm Smitha Nair. This is your weekly fix. The opening scene of Tamil superstar Suriya's critically acclaimed Bhim is so potent that one scene, lasting a little over 2 minutes, pithily tells the story of the impunity with which some of the most marginalized people in India are victimized and brutalized by the state. Cops from various police stations are seen waiting outside a jail. These policemen are under pressure to show arrests in various cases they have evidently been unable to crack. So, what are they doing here outside a jail? Well, they're here to shop for suspects. Men belonging to the already condemned, denotified, nomadic, semi nomadic tribes and Dalits make for easy pickings. As the gate of the jail opens and the men begin to walk out, an officer asks each man, Ni enda aalu, which is Tamil for which caste do you belong to. Those from the oppressed communities are made to stand aside and later allocated, you could say auctioned off, to the waiting policemen to be arrested in their unsolved cases. The jail in charge is shown pocketing a neat sum. I would urge you to watch the film. Those who already have and have questions about how factually accurate the script is, Justice K Chandru, the man who inspired the film and who's played by Suriya in the movie, joins us in a moment. Let me give you some context first. While the director, exercising his cinematic liberty, has shown the protagonist couple as belonging to the Irula tribe, in the real life case, the couple belonged to the Kuruva community, one among the denotified tribes. During British rule, about 200 communities, mostly nomadic, were notified by the British as criminal tribes through the Criminal Tribes Act of 1871. After independence, these communities were denotified by the Nehru government, hence the reference to denotified tribes. Social anthropologist Meena Radhakrishna, author of Dishonored by History, Criminal Tribes and the British Colonial Policy, writes that the charge of criminality against them was a fabricated one. These communities were declared criminal tribes for a variety of reasons, including for their participation in the 1847 War of Independence or in other rebellions against the British. She further writes that there was an acute social prejudice shared by the British and the settled Indian communities against nomadic people, which was in line with the attitude of the British against gypsies back home. A large number of police officials, she observes, seem to have inherited a deep prejudice against these communities from the British police and from the British government. Since they were officially declared criminals by birth, police brutality against these communities has been widespread. Their members continue to be the easiest targets of police whenever there is an incident of a heinous crime or when the pressure to solve a crime mounts. Dilip D'Souza, author of Branded by Law, Looking at India's Denotified Tribes, has documented the continuing police atrocities on these people in independent India. D'Souza writes that independent India may have denotified them as such by a 1952 act, but act or no act, denotified tribes continue to be treated as criminal by the police and by society. They are arrested on the slightest pretext, accused of random crimes, and assaulted by fellow villagers. The women are routinely molested and their houses destroyed. Okay, let's welcome Justice K Chandru to the podcast. Thank you, sir, for taking the time to join us on your weekly fix.
Thank you, Smitha.
Justice Chandru, I began the podcast by narrating that very powerful opening scene in the film Jai Bhim. Now, things may not necessarily have played out exactly like that, but could you tell us what that opening scene speaks to?
That particular first scene was to highlight, even after the withdrawal of the Criminal Tribes Act and the tribes who are gone out of the schedule of the act, who are now called as denotified tribes, are continued to be kept as criminal tribes by the police at the lower level. And if there is any crime in a particular area, police only look out for the people who are now denotified tribe. So this system of, even after removal from the list, they continue to be branded as criminals by the local police, and many a time, and they were being cooked up for one case, second case, third case, like that. Even in this film, later you will find the IG Perumal Sami having a whole lot of sob stories from the tribes assembled in one place at the instance of Suriya, who is a lawyer.
Hmm.
And then each one has got a story to tell. And one person says, I was accused of stealing 5 motorbikes, whereas I don't even know how to drive a bike. So this is how they have been treated even today. And there is nothing new. In fact, I can tell you the police many times give adjectives, the names of the accused. And in some other police station earlier, they used to put before the name KR. KR means Korava.
Okay.
So we complained to the High Court that the accused should not have any adjectives added by the police. The High Court also took exception and told the government to look into the matter. To my shock, yesterday I spoke to a district judge who was in Tamil Nadu. He told me out of the 300 cases received in his court, he found in every statement recorded by the police, even from the person who are concerned in the criminal case under section 161, the cast of the witness are also added. Cast of the person involved in the case are also added. Therefore, this is never stops. So the first scene trying to show that they are waiting outside to catch the same people, maybe dramatizing the whole thing, but it actually means the same people, even if they're found innocent or completely served a sentence, were waiting to be included in some other case. So it was a depiction of the fate of the so-called denotified tribes.
Okay. Justice Chandru, that the police can do something like this with impunity, doesn't this also reflect poorly on the court of first instance, the magistrate, where these individuals are first produced for remand? After all, the provision of remand exists as an important check and balance on police powers. That the law mandates that an arrestee be produced in a court within 24 hours of being arrested, and that the police need to make arguments to secure his or her custody.
In 1993, there was no DK Basu guidelines available, and the DK Basu judgment came with 11 commandments about the pre-trial accused. It was also said that the policemen or the officers who were violating that can be held up for contempt.
Okay.
And the directives which are given in the Supreme Court judgment also said that the trial magistrates or the remand magistrates, if they violate these guidelines, the action can be initiated by the High Court.
Okay.
I do not think any such actions have been initiated either against the remand magistrate or against the erring policeman. Maybe there was one exception where, while I was hearing cases in Madurai bench, on the basis of the DK Basu violation, a contempt action was initiated by me against the inspector of police. But then they are only few and far. But what is important is that the pre-trial guarantee of rights given to the accused are more observed in breach than in observance. Even now, we have the notorious Satankulam where father and son were murdered by the police torture in the police station. The remand magistrate has mechanically remanded the two accused without even sending them for medical treatment. That resulted in the death of the two persons. So I wrote a letter to the Chief Justice saying that why no action is taken against the magistrate. And there was no reply. Thereafter, I wrote articles in some English papers that how is that this magistrate has been given immunity from action, even though Supreme Court said action should be initiated. But till date, the magistrate continues in the same post, continue to discharge his duty as a judicial officer, despite the fact he has violated all constitutional guarantees given to the pre-trial accused.
Right. Justice Chandru, I want to focus on the main sort of plot point of the movie Jai Bhim. Suriya, who plays you, goes to great lengths to investigate the disappearance of Rajakanu, traveling in state transport buses, in general compartment of trains, to multiple places to get to the truth. Is this indeed how it played out? How significant was the tracking down of the two men, his relatives, who were in the lockup with him when he was beaten to death, to this case, to how it played out?
Since you happen to compare the film or the original case, which is not, in my opinion, very much necessary, but since I was handling the case, I can clarify that this particular depiction of the film may not be actually took place because the stage in which the IG was appointed as a SIT to probe and the two nephews of the deceased Raja Kannu being brought to the police station, they were not done by the investigation officer. In fact, the very fact investigation officer was appointed was only when the two nephews came to the court and then gave a statement about what happened in the lockup.
Okay.
So the entire steps for bringing these two boys from a faraway Kerala, remote rural place where they were hiding due to the fear of the police was done by us.
Okay.
And that was much before the investigation started. But in a way, the bringing of the two boys with great difficulties changed the course of the case because from a habeas corpus petition, the statements became relevant for starting a murder trial against the accused policeman.
Okay. And the film also underscores how habeas corpus is such a powerful instrument in securing the right to personal liberty. Can you, sir, explain habeas corpus such that a layperson could understand its significance?
A habeas corpus is a prerogative writ jurisdiction available to the courts in England, and it was also such powers were exercised by the king in the olden days, where when somebody complains about the forcible detention of anybody or deprivation of liberty, the king can command for the protection of the body. Habeas means produce, body means the corpus means the body.
Okay.
What is the protection of the body? Somebody comes to the court and says, so and so is being detained, either in a police station or in a house or in a landlord's house or a mine owner's house. Then the court issues the writ, prerogative writ, to asking him to or her to produce that person to the court, either dead or alive. Now, when the Indian high courts were formed in the 1860s, this power available to the English court was given to the Indian High Court, and it became one of the prerogative writ jurisdiction, which became very important in securing the liberty of any individual who cannot be detained against their consent.
Okay.
Now, the court started using this power in a very massive way, and significantly, this power can be exercised even against private individuals, not necessarily against police or government. So, if a private individual detained, this happens more often in the love stories where a boy and girl escape from a village and then one of the relative files a habeas corpus. Then the girl is brought to the court and her statement is recorded, whether she has gone on her own volition, whether there was any compulsion. If she says on her own volition, then the court asks her, where does she want to go? If she says, I want to go with a boy, the court sends her with a boy. And now we actually jocularly call this as a lovebirds case. This is now on the increase because of the honor killing that goes on a caste prejudices. And therefore, habeas is a potent weapon in the hands of the High Court. And Justice Krishna Nair, while hearing the case of a prisoner in a matter relating to Sunil Bhadra versus Delhi administration, expanded the scope of habeas corpus. He also said it is not mere for the protection of the body, even for the prisoner's conditions of detention can also be gone into by the court. He has also made the judges of the district cadre to visit the jails often and send petition to the High Court. He has also directed the prison to keep grievance boxes in which prisoners can complain, and all the letters sent to the put in the box were transferred to the court and treated as a habeas corpus case. I had conducted hundreds of cases of letters came from prisoners. Now, when there is a rich development of this jurisdiction, unfortunately, of late we find by the court's delay, the matter become infructuous. Suppose somebody is illegally detained for 1 year under some detention law, and you don't hear the case. And after 1 year, he is going to come out. Many of the habeas corpus were made to become infructuous by the court's delay. Secondly, you see in Jammu and Kashmir, people who are detained under the Security Act, their cases are yet to be heard And how long the Supreme Court will take to hear the case, we do not know. So the purpose for which habeas corpus has been created is slowly being eroded either by the indifference or by commission or omission by the courts, in the sense we are not showing enough urgency. Actually, in this case is also a eye opener for many of the judicial officers to see what they can do with a habeas corpus case.
Okay.
And when clients come, we don't tell them what case we are filing. We are only filing petition to get them relief. And an unlettered person like the Parvati in this case, even if I explain to her what it is, she may not know. But she came with a grievance. Her husband is missing, and therefore we filed a habeas corpus. Husband was found in the police station. Therefore, we made the police responsible for his production. The police in defense took the stand that they escaped from the jail, escaped from the lockup, and therefore they brought one doctor, one juicewala, as an alibi to speak that they saw Raja Kanna coming to them and getting treated or getting some juice. Now, this story was exploded later when the investigation was done by the IG, Perumal Sami, and it was found it was a false case set up by the police station.
Right. Custodial violence is the Indian criminal justice system's worst kept secret. Now, despite the spelling out of the rights of pretrial accused in DK Basu, despite multiple courts giving directions, custodial violence and torture by the police continues. Why do you think this is? Why does this happen?
When court starts framing guidelines, the implementing authority is the executive. It is not a law, but then in constitution, a direction issued by the Supreme Court is also law. But it does not sink to the bottom level because the governments are not interested in implementing or indifferent. Even in Tamil Nadu, the police department issued a circular intimating how they should follow the guideline. They've also given a pro forma. But then the pro forma remains as a pro forma. They fill up all false things. Then, for example, there is a question, whom did you inform about the arrest? They will say X, Y, Z because the relative was not available, wife was not available. So unless it is synced into the system, it is difficult for courts to lay down guidelines and allow the matters to take its own course. It is in that sense that the court directives are not, even now, the Supreme Court has issued a fresh directive following the DK Basu guideline.
Okay.
Now, where do you go from here? Why is that the police not wanting to implement? Because for them to hide their crimes, these guidelines are also a obstacle, and therefore they simply ignore. Who will take action? Nobody will take action. Therefore, they are very happy. It is in that sense these guidelines remain as a paper proposition, and many a times police does many things which are not authorized by law.
And Justice Chandru, that the overwhelming number of under trials in Indian prisons, Dalit or Adivasi, also speaks to the inbuilt prejudices in our criminal justice system. In your experience, first as a lawyer and later as a judge, what kind of evidence did you see of this deep seated prejudice?
Fortunately, at present, the accused community is also mentioned in the court record, in the police station record. Therefore, the total number of cases that is being brought to courts, both at the trial stage and at the higher stage, shows the people who are always hauled up for such crimes or such offences are always the underprivileged. More often it is some tribals or a scheduled caste. This is something which is very, very shocking. And an attempt has been made to make in the society, others are all very honest and law-abiding citizens. And only these people are such criminals, which is a very sad state of affairs that we have. And it also shows in a way the higher caste prejudice against the lower caste.
Okay.
And therefore, there is also a vested interest in proving that it is only the lower caste who are capable of committing such offences, which is totally contrary to the facts and also contrary to the law also.
Okay. Justice Chandru, one understands that you have always spoken up for the right to protest. As a judge, you have upheld that right. How do you view what some are calling the criminalization of protest by way of indiscriminate slapping of UAPA and sedition charges against anybody who comes out to protest or dissents?
As a student, I was jailed for crossing picketing line. I had been to jail actually for 2 weeks in a protest defying the so-called ban order.
Okay.
So we know the pain. That right to protest, if it is going to be a constitutional right, you can't stop it with such criminal laws which do not even stand the test of the rule of law. But unfortunately, courts make a mechanical uh, uh, provision upholding these laws. The net result is thousands of people, merely because they want to protest, arrested and put in jail. We have hundreds and thousands of cases like that. Ordinary workers, women, students, slum dwellers being put in jail only because they defied some picketing or some prohibitory orders. And we recently saw in the Shaheen Bagh case where people were peacefully protesting against the citizenship amendments, and then court wants them to go away. Now there is a lot of confusion because there is a final judgment which has come saying that you have a right to protest, but you can't squat in the street.
Right.
Does it mean we must hold some lamp or a candle light in the house or put the tali drum in the house? This is a thing which I want to ask. The courts are really making them in a way very contradictory. If you want to say right to protest, now they say you can protest but not in public street, or you can sit in the public street but only for a few days, not eternally. So what about that? Now the latest joke is, since I'm hearing one case held by somebody else, don't protest. Are you my patron? Are you my guardian in the sense? There I can give up all my right under the constitution and wait for your order. And I also want to know, will your orders come in time? How long it will take? Why is that the Jammu and Kashmir cases are not being heard at all? Why is that the Bhima Koregaon detainees are there for 3 years without any proper hearing on their bail applications? This is something which is a vexed question, which makes me to think that ultimately the liberty of the citizens are only in their own hands and not vested with the judiciary, which is supposed to act like a watchdog of the rights of the people. By their delay, by their commission and omission, we do not get the actual orders on time. I know in Tamil Nadu, number of detainees were coming from poor families. Their cases of habeas corpus were never heard on time, and finally they come out from out jail after the full term of detention, whether it's legal or illegal, nobody knows. And then happily the court dismissed all the petitions as infructuous petition. Nothing become infructuous. They can still hear those cases and give them compensation, which is not done. And in that sense, when I became a judge, I decided one thing, that the right to protest is a fundamental right.
Right. Justice Chandru, in conclusion, I want to come back to the question of custodial violence, and anecdotal evidence suggests that there is social sanction for extrajudicial killings or encounter killings of accused and police torture. The IG Perumal's character, played by Prakash Raj, also spouts a very populist sort of dialogue on how sometimes to secure justice you have to adopt extrajudicial measures. Why do you suppose there is a sort of normalization of police violence?
What is shocking is the normal people or the ordinary people or the film going people supporting this encounter super cops who actually commit a murder, and their defense is accepted without any scrutiny by any court. And their third degree methods are considered to be justified to bring out the crime. These are all the manifestation of the past and continue to be licensed by this kind of false stories that is let out, which is believed even by educated people in this country, because many people feel that only when a police beats, a thief will accept the mistake.
Right.
And a cop from a police station is entitled to shoot anybody if he suspects that person. And the result is police stations have become courts, inspectors have become judges, death sentences are given day in, day out in the name of encounter. And when the National Human Rights Commission gave guidelines that an encounter is only a defense argument open to a police, and only when a murder case is registered In that murder trial, that particular cop should justify the circumstances under which he made an encounter killing. This is never being followed anywhere. On the other hand, in Hyderabad, we saw the policeman brought in a public vehicle, garlanded, and then cheering mob, and somebody doling out laddus, all the passerbys. What happened in the George Floyd case should be a reminder, because it is not a death by on one black by the police in public. It shook the conscience of the people.
Right.
It also brought the slogan, "We are entitled to live. Blacks are entitled to live." Like that, we should have a slogan that the tribes and scheduled castes in this country are entitled to live with dignity in rule of law. And this message must also be taken in a broader level. And I'm sure the media also should play. And if this film also gives any such message, I think this film should be welcome, even for such extra message that comes out of one true story that took place about 3 decades ago.
Right. Thank you for that, sir. Thank you, Justice Chandru, for also agreeing to speak to us on this podcast on Scroll. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Smitha.
That's it for the moment. Thank you very much to our listeners as well. I'll be back next Friday.